This is a whistling solo by John Yorke AtLee. Mr. AtLee, by day, was a patent examiner at the patent office in U.S. Patent Office in Washington, D.C. In the early 90s. And he would go to the Columbia Phonograph Company and make recordings in the evenings or afternoon as he was a good whistler. And they caught on pretty well in the early phonograph in the early 90s. And his whistling solos persisted in the talking machine through the 90s and in the very early part of the 20th century. But then his whistling solos on the phonograph fell out of popularity. It might also be added that Washington, D.C. Was the home of the Columbia Phonograph Company, which was one of the branches of the North American Phonograph Company. The Columbia Phonograph Company was named that because of Washington, D.C., a district of Columbia. And they became one of the leading phonograph producers in the late 90s and in the early part of the 20th century, and actually it's still going today in a way. It's part of Sony today, but it's a very old company. It goes back to the beginning of the phonograph, the very beginning of the phonograph in the late 80s, and actually is tied in with the Bell and Tanner phonograph of the 80s as well. The Bell and Tanner phonograph, which was financed by Alexander Graham Bell.